And our top story this hour coming in from West Asia as critical deadline looms on President Donald Trump's peace plan for Gaza. Hamas has now said it needs more time. The plan has global backing, including a cautious nod from Russia and even support from key Arab states. And as all sides voice an eagerness for race for peace in the ravaged region, a Hamas official has now told AFP that the group is still holding consultations on Trump's Gaza peace plan. The official said mediators have been informed that discussions are ongoing and will take more time. President Trump's plan, backed by Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu, was unveiled on Tuesday. President Trump had initially given a 72-hour deadline in what he said would remain so. However, he later said that 3 to 4 days would be given, essentially demanding Hamas to surrender all weapons in exchange for a ceasefire. Hostages freed and promises of aid and reconstruction were among the demands mentioned in the 20-point peace proposal.
So the president made it very clear he wants to hear back from them very soon.
The sticking points are apparent. First, the demand that Hamas disarm. A source close to the organization said that the surrender of all weapons would be very difficult for Hamas to accept, especially without any political process or even substantial progress towards a two-state resolution. Another concern for Hamas is the vague promise of Israeli withdrawals. International reaction is mixed but largely cautious. Russian President Vladimir Putin has called the plan quote-unquote light at the end of the tunnel. But he stressed support depends on it leading to a Palestinian state and warned against any unilateral Western solutions.
Regarding President Trump's proposal on Gaza, you know this may come as a surprise to you, but Russia is generally prepared to support it. UN Security Council resolution was adopted, advocated the creation of two states, Israel and a Palestinian state. And this, in my view, is the key to a final solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict.
Arab states, meanwhile, have officially endorsed Trump's proposal. 8 nations, including Egypt, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, Qatar and the UAE, have issued a joint statement praising what they called genuine efforts to end the conflict and secure hostages. But the Palestinian Authority and many regional voices insist that the plan must guarantee civilian protection and a clear pathway to a two-state solution. For now, Hamas holds back from a final response. The countdown on Trump's deadline looms large. And joining us live on the broadcast from Birmingham is Professor David Dunn. He is Professor of International Politics in the Department of Political Science and International Studies at the University of Birmingham. He joins us live on the broadcast. Professor David, appreciate you joining us on the broadcast. First up, your reading into the statement that's coming in from Hamas. They say they are still assessing Trump's proposal. But talk to us about the deadline that looms large, because the statement that came in from Trump was also ambiguous in many ways. First, he said 72 hours, and later he said 3 to even 4 days.
Yes, so the clock is very much ticking if the Americans and Israel stick to that deadline that they have set. But the difficulty that Hamas faces is twofold. First of all, they are split. The fighters in Gaza, the armed wing, want to keep fighting. They think that their best strategy is to try and prolong the conflict until the Israeli elections, and that Israel is overstretched, and the mobilization in Israel is expensive and difficult for Israel. And the second thing is that the demands put upon Hamas are really very severe. They haven't been involved in this process. There's very little detail about when precisely Israeli forces will withdraw. And as your report said, there is no real clear process outlined towards a two-state solution. There has been no progress towards that. And the fear is that actually if the Hamas was to disarm, that Israel would renege, go back on any commitment to there being a Palestinian homeland. So there really is a difficulty in getting to a conclusion on what the response should be.
Yes, Professor David rightly said there is, of course, that area of contention when we talk about the two-state solution. Also, if we can read more into the 20-point plan presented by President Trump, in your view, do you think the sticking points are primarily asking Hamas to disarm completely? And also, the mention of Israel withdrawal from Gaza is, in many ways, quite vague.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So part of Hamas's identity right from the 80s when it was formed is that it's an armed struggle, and the armed struggle is part of that. And what they've been asked to do is completely disarm in return for a vague promises of Israel withdrawing. Israel, of course, will still be fully armed. So the fear is that if they were to do that and Israel went back on their word, then they would be vulnerable to whatever Israel wanted to do as a consequence. So, and they say there is that split. Was the leaders in Istanbul and in Doha are more inclined to accept the peace process, but the ones on the ground in Gaza are saying, no, let's fight on. So it's very so they're asking for more time. It's partly because they want to study the details, they want to actually try and get more reassurances, but it's also they're trying to come to a unified positions, right, because it is the armed wing in Gaza who actually control the fate of the hostages, and if they don't agree, then they won't be released, and then this peace deal won't be achieved.
That's right, Professor David, point taken, and obviously that brings us to the question on whether there is any way, even an end game to all this, and if there is a headway in sight. Appreciate you joining us on the broadcast.
Always a pleasure.